I want to take a little segue, Lara, and talk a bit about one group of women who actually managed to create independence through their own work, and that is the girls, and they called themselves girls, who worked for the Tiffany lamp company. Can we sort of segue just for a minute to women who managed to develop enough skill to actually support themselves?
Yes, I think this was something that was really a new development in the late 19th century. The fact that there were some urban working women who were skilled enough to actually be paid pretty well, although probably not as well as men would have been paid if they were doing the same job. But certainly for some women, there were new opportunities opening up. So you might think about the Tiffany Girls, but also by the 1880s, you start seeing some women working as journalists, for example. You see women working as novelists. So women are also female physicians, so you do see women, very small numbers, but starting to go into the professions, and also in the case of the Tiffany Girls, becoming quite skilled workers.
I do think it's remarkable that Clara Driscoll, who was one of the designers, a major designer for the Tiffany company, and worked for them for about 20 years, actually managed to earn up to $10,000 a year, which is a remarkable amount for a woman in those days. Earned that much, was married 3 times, lived a very full and interesting life, and yet she was a woman, but she was a woman with skill. She was an artist and came to the Tiffany company with a good deal of experience at various forms of art and craft, and she managed to translate that into these wonderful Tiffany designs.
That's interesting. I think one other place that you might see that is in terms of milliners, who are also highly skilled and served a female clientele, and also dressmakers as well, some skilled dressmakers, and they were really able to be fairly independent.
Yes, and such dressmakers and milliners had their own shops, so
Right.
they were entrepreneurs of a
Right.
kind.
Right.
Just as Clara Driscoll supervised perhaps 30 or 35 women in the lamp making piece of the Tiffany company. So that there was then a way at the end of the 19th century for women to earn their way into independence, which was, relatively speaking, relatively new and still open to some small group of people. What about men who watched these women? I mean, I'm thinking, for example, that Clara Driscoll was at first opposed by the men who worked at the Tiffany company, who didn't want to see women doing the kinds of jobs that she was doing. She was, after all, designing as well as implementing her designs. And yet, they came around.
Right. I think that was a struggle that a lot of working women faced, is that working men tended to see women coming into their industry as a threat to their wages, as a threat to their skill. In many industries, the introduction of women was associated with the introduction of mechanization, with jobs being sort of broken down and mechanized, with standards of labor dropping. So a lot of men saw this negatively, and I think it was a long battle to convince them otherwise. I mean, if you look at organized labor in the 1830s or the 1840s, the men who are organizing have a completely negative view of women coming into their workplaces. In the 1880s, you do have Lenora Berry, who's really arguing with working men and trying to convince them that women are going to be going out to work, like it or not, and so rather than have them undercut men's wages, the best thing for them to do is organize. But it was a battle that definitely went into the 20th century.